This is the story of how I caught my wife getting fucked by her trainer while I thought she was at the gym. My revenge was savage. I always thought I had a pretty good marriage. My wife Rachel and I had been together for 9 years, and while things weren't as exciting as they used to be, I figured that was normal. Life gets busy. Work, bills, routines, they all pile up. But lately, something about Rachel had shifted. It started small, things I might not have noticed if they hadn't all happened at once. She suddenly became obsessed with the gym. Rachel had always been active, but now she was going 4, sometimes 5 times a week. She'd come home talking about classes and trainers like they were the highlights of her day. I didn't think much of it at first. She seemed happy, more energetic. I even joked that I should start going with her. Please, she said, laughing. You'd last 5 minutes in one of my classes. But as the weeks went by, her gym routine started to feel off. She'd come home later and later, saying she grabbed a smoothie with friends or stayed for a second class. She started buying expensive new workout clothes, getting her nails done, and even wearing perfume to the gym. You're putting on perfume to sweat? I joked one day. She smiled, brushing it off. It's just for me. Makes me feel good. I wanted to believe her. The first real crack appeared about a month ago. She was getting ready to leave for another late session when her phone buzzed on the counter. A message popped up, and I couldn't help but glance at it. It was from someone named Megan, and the preview said, "Can't wait for tonight." Something about it didn't sit right. Who's Megan? I asked casually as she grabbed her phone. Oh, just one of the girls from the gym, Rachel said, slipping her phone into her bag. We've been doing this new yoga class together. She's super sweet. She kissed me on the cheek and walked out the door. Her explanation made sense. At least it sounded like it did. But the message replayed in my head all night. Can't wait for tonight. Who says that about a yoga class? Over the next week, I started noticing more things I'd brushed off before. Rachel was glued to her phone constantly. She laughed at texts, but never showed me what was so funny. When I asked, she'd say, just memes from the group chat, and change the subject. She started keeping her phone face down on the table, something she never used to do. One night, she left it charging in the kitchen while she showered. My curiosity got the better of me. I walked over and stared at it for what felt like forever. My hands itched to pick it up, but I stopped myself. I didn't want to be the kind of husband who snoops through his wife's phone, but the doubts didn't go away. Rachel's late nights became more frequent. She'd come home glowing, full of energy, like she'd just had the best time of her life. How was the gym? I asked one night, watching her carefully. Amazing, she said, kicking off her shoes. You should come with me sometime. I laughed, shaking my head. I don't think I'd survive one of your classes. She grinned, but there was something about the way she looked at me that didn't feel right. The turning point came a few days later. Rachel was asleep, her phone charging on the nightstand. I stared at it for a long time, the blue glow of the screen lighting up her peaceful face. I knew her passcode. She'd told me years ago, and as far as I knew, she hadn't changed it. My hands hovered over the phone. Was I really about to do this? Yes. I unlocked it and went straight to her messages. Most of them seemed normal. There was a group chat with her gym friends, a conversation with her sister, even a thread with her boss about an upcoming meeting. But then I noticed something odd. A thread with Megan was pinned at the top, even though there were only a few messages in it. I clicked on it, my heart pounding. The texts were vague. Megan. See you tomorrow? Rachel. Of course. Usual time. It wasn't much, but it felt wrong. Why pin a conversation like this? Why was it so important? Then I noticed something else. Rachel had downloaded a new app, one I didn't recognize. Its icon was plain, just a gray circle, and it didn't have a name under it. I clicked on it and a login screen popped up. Password required. I stared at the login screen on Rachel's phone, my heart pounding. The plain gray app felt out of place, like it didn't belong. Why would she need a password-protected app? For what? I put the phone back on the nightstand and lay down, but sleep didn't come. My mind spun with possibilities. It could be harmless. Something for work or organizing her fitness schedule, but why would she hide it like that? And why would she need a password when the phone itself was already locked? By the time morning came, I felt drained. Rachel got up, kissed me on the forehead, and hummed as she got ready for her day. Heading to the gym tonight? I asked, keeping my tone light. Yeah, she said, smiling at me. Late class again. You don't mind, do you? Of course not. I lied, forcing a smile. Have fun. She left shortly after, and I felt the tension in my chest grow. I needed to know what was going on. That evening, Rachel came home glowing like usual. She tossed her gym bag on the floor and plopped down on the couch next to me. How was class? I asked, pretending to be interested. Amazing, she said, stretching her arms over her head. We did this killer routine. My legs are going to hate me tomorrow. I nodded, my eyes drifting to her phone, which she had placed on the coffee table face down. Do you ever take breaks from that place? I joked, trying to keep my tone light. You've been going so much lately. It's addicting, she said with a laugh. Once you get into a routine, you just don't want to stop. I smiled, but inside I was boiling. She was too relaxed, too at ease. It was like she thought I didn't have a clue. The next day, I decided to take a deeper look into her routine. I told her I'd be working late and stayed home instead, waiting for her to leave for the gym. When she pulled out of the driveway, I followed her at a distance, keeping my headlights off. My stomach churned as I tailed her car. I felt ridiculous, like some character in a bad spy movie. But I needed answers. She drove past the gym. My chest tightened as I watched her take a left turn, heading toward the downtown area. I kept my distance, trying not to lose her in traffic. Eventually, she pulled into the parking lot of a small cafe. I parked a block away and watched as she got out of the car. She wasn't wearing her usual gym clothes. Instead, she had on jeans and a fitted sweater. Her hair was down, and she looked amazing. My heart sank. She walked into the cafe, her steps light and confident. A few minutes later, a man walked in. He was tall, athletic, and dressed sharply. He spotted Rachel immediately, and they hugged like old friends, or maybe more than friends. I sat frozen in my car, my stomach twisting into knots. They grabbed a table near the window. Rachel laughed at something he said, her hand brushing his arm. She looked happy, too happy. I took out my phone and snapped a few photos from the car. I hated myself for it, but I needed proof. When Rachel came home that night, I pretended everything was normal. She walked in with her usual smile, kissed me on the cheek, and started talking about her workout. "Brutal class tonight," she said, kicking off her shoes. "I might skip tomorrow if I'm too sore." I nodded, barely hearing her. My mind was still stuck on what I'd seen at the cafe. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but something held me back. It wasn't enough. If I accused her now, she'd deny it, say it was just a friend or someone from work. I needed more than a hug and a few photos. I needed real evidence. That night, after Rachel fell asleep, I opened her phone again. My hands shook as I stared at the gray app icon. The password screen felt like a wall I couldn't get past. Then I remembered something. Rachel had once told me she used a simple code for everything, something easy to remember. Her birthday hadn't worked last time, but maybe. I typed in my own birthday. The screen unlocked. Inside the app were hundreds of messages, photos, and videos. My stomach churned as I scrolled through them. They weren't from anyone named Megan. They were from the man I'd seen at the cafe. His name was Matt. The messages were flirty, full of inside jokes and late-night confessions. "Matt, I can't stop thinking about last night. You looked amazing." Rachel, "You're sweet. I wish we could have more time together." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I scrolled through the messages, each one hitting me like a slap in the face. Rachel wasn't just flirting with Matt. She was full-on living a double life. "Matt, are you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Rachel, "Not a chance. He's as clueless as ever." Clueless. That word stabbed me deeper than anything else. I kept reading, unable to stop, even though every message made me feel worse. Rachel, "I hate pretending everything's fine at home. He's just so boring, and it's the same thing every day with him." Matt, "You don't have to keep pretending. You deserve to be happy." Rachel, "I know, I just need more time to figure things out." My stomach churned. She wasn't just lying to me. She was laughing at me behind my back. The next day, Rachel acted like nothing was wrong. She laughed at her morning coffee, kissed me goodbye, and told me she'd see me after yoga. Watching her so carefree, so unbothered, made my blood boil. I couldn't stop thinking about her words. Clueless, boring, pretending everything's fine. Was that all I'd ever been to her? A placeholder until someone more exciting came along? I needed to know how far this had gone. That evening, after Rachel left for the gym, or wherever she was really going, I went back into her phone. This time I searched for videos. What I found was worse than anything I could have imagined. There were several files, all saved under vague names like lunch or meeting. But when I clicked on one, it wasn't lunch or a meeting. It was Rachel and Matt sitting in what looked like a hotel room. She was lying on the bed, laughing, while he filmed her. "Stop recording me," she said playfully, pushing the camera away. "Why?" Matt asked, his voice smooth. "You look perfect." I slammed the phone down, my chest heaving. My hands shook as I reached for another video. This one was worse. They were at a restaurant, sitting close enough that their knees touched under the table. Rachel leaned in, whispering something in his ear that made him grin. "You're crazy," she said, laughing. "You love it," he replied. Her hand brushed his, lingering for just a second too long. It wasn't just the betrayal that made me sick. It was how happy she looked. How much effort she was putting into this, whatever this was. The messages kept coming back to me. The ones where she complained about me, about our life. I started noticing little things in real life that matched what she had said. When we had dinner together, she'd glance at her phone every few minutes. If I asked her a question, she'd give a one-word answer, like she couldn't even be bothered to pretend she cared. That night, when she came home, she walked in with her usual bright smile. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag by the door. "How was your day?" I shrugged. "The usual. How was yoga?" Her smile didn't falter. "So good, I'm exhausted." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her I knew everything, but I held back. I needed to be smart about this. "Maybe we should go out this weekend," I said, testing her reaction. "Dinner, just the two of us." She hesitated for a split second before recovering. "I'd love to, but I might have to work late. I'll let you know." I nodded, pretending to believe her. The next morning, Rachel left for work early. I waited until she was gone before opening her laptop. It wasn't locked, and I started combing through her files. Most of it looked normal, work documents, photos from old vacations, but then I found a folder labeled personal. Inside were more photos and videos. Some of them were innocent enough, pictures of Rachel with her friends or at the gym, but then there were the ones with Matt. One photo showed them sitting on a couch, her head resting on his shoulder. Another was taken at a park, his arm wrapped around her waist. Then I found a note. It was a letter she had written but never sent. Matt, I can't stop thinking about you. Being with you feels so different, so easy. I hate going home to John. He doesn't get me the way you do. I feel alive with you in a way I haven't felt in years. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I want to leave, but I need to be careful. He doesn't suspect anything, but if I don't handle this right, it could get messy. You mean everything to me. Rachel. I sat back in the chair, the words blurring in front of me. She was planning to leave me. Not just cheat, but walk away from everything we had built together. And she thought I wouldn't suspect a thing. As I sat there reading the letter, my emotions shifted from pain to anger. Rachel wasn't just lying to me. She was plotting to leave me and take everything we'd built together, all while laughing at how clueless I was. She thought I'd just roll over and let her win. She was wrong. If Rachel wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier. The first thing I did was make copies of everything. The messages, the photos, the videos, every shred of evidence I could find. I stored them on a secure drive and backed them up to the cloud. Then I started digging into our finances. Rachel and I had joint accounts, but I hadn't paid close attention to them in years. She was the one who handled most of the bills. But when I looked at the transactions, I found exactly what I'd expected. Expensive dinners, hotel stays, boutique shops, none of it was for me. The next step was subtle. I opened a new account in my name only and started moving money over bit by bit. Not enough to raise suspicion, just small amounts that added up over time. I also called a lawyer. My wife is cheating on me, I said bluntly during the consultation. She's planning to leave, but I want to make sure she doesn't get a single thing. The lawyer listened carefully as I laid out everything. Her affair, the evidence I'd found, her plans to leave. By the time I was done, she looked impressed. With this kind of proof, you have a strong case, she said. File first. It'll put you in control of the process. And gather as much documentation as you can about your finances. If she's spending marital funds on this affair, we can use that against her. File first. That stuck with me. Rachel thought she was in control, but I was about to flip the script. Over the next week, I kept up the charade. I smiled when she talked about her yoga classes and nodded along when she told me about her day. Meanwhile, I was laying the groundwork to take everything from her. I reached out to a few mutual friends, subtly planting seeds of doubt about Rachel. Have you noticed anything different about her lately? I'd ask. She's been acting distant. Most of them brushed it off, but a couple looked uneasy, like they'd noticed something too, but didn't want to say it out loud. Perfect. Then came the day of her girls' weekend. Rachel claimed she was heading out of town with some friends from the gym for a spa retreat. She kissed me goodbye and told me not to worry. As soon as she left, I started putting the final pieces of my plan into place. First, I changed the locks on the house. Rachel didn't know it yet, but she wouldn't be coming back. Then, I called her workplace. Using an anonymous email account, I sent them the videos and messages I'd found. I kept the tone professional, framing it as a concern for their reputation. You may want to reconsider employing someone who behaves like this, I wrote. Finally, I filed for divorce. The lawyer assured me that with the evidence I had, Rachel wouldn't have a leg to stand on in court. By the time she came back from her spa retreat, everything was set. Rachel walked through the door Sunday evening, her smile as bright as ever. Hey, she called out. I'm home. I was waiting in the living room, the divorce papers sitting on the coffee table. Hi, Rachel, I said, my voice calm. Her smile faltered. What's wrong? I gestured to the papers. We need to talk. She froze, her eyes darting to the table. What is this? Divorce papers, I said, leaning back in my chair. I know everything, Rachel. The texts, the videos, the hotels. You thought I was clueless, didn't you? Her face turned pale. John, I can explain. Don't, I interrupted. I don't want to hear it. You've been lying to me for months, maybe longer. But here's the thing. You're not walking away with anything. The accounts are frozen, the locks are changed, and your boss, well, let's just say they know the kind of person you really are now. Her jaw dropped. You sent them the videos. I smiled, a cold, calculated smile. I did, and you should see some of the responses I've gotten from our friends. You underestimated me, Rachel. That was your first mistake. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing. You can pack whatever you need tonight, I said, standing up. But after that, you're out. I've already spoken to my lawyer. This house, it's mine. Our savings, also mine. You wanted to start over so badly. Well, now you can. Good luck out there. She stared at me, her expression a mix of shock and rage. You can't do this. I leaned in close, my voice low. I already have. Rachel sat there, frozen, her eyes darting between me and the divorce papers. For the first time in months, she didn't have a quick answer. No clever excuse or fake smile. She looked small, trapped, and for once, I was the one in control. "You're overreacting," she said finally, her voice trembling. "John, we can talk about this. We've been together for almost 10 years. You can't just throw that away." I laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Throw it away?" "Rachel, you threw it away the moment you started sneaking around. The moment you called me clueless and boring behind my back. The moment you made a mockery of everything we built together." She opened her mouth to argue, but I wasn't interested. "This conversation is over," I said, pointing to the papers. "Sign those, pack your things, and get out." Her face twisted with anger. "You think you can just toss me aside after everything I've done for you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Everything you've done for me? Oh, you mean spending our money on hotels, dinners, and jewelry for Matt? Or do you mean lying to my face every single day?" "Yeah, you've done plenty, Rachel." Over the next hour, she tried everything, crying, pleading, even shouting. At one point, she accused me of invading her privacy, as if snooping on her phone was worse than her months of betrayal. "You had no right!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "I had every right," I shot back. "You brought this on yourself, don't forget that." By the time she finally started packing, I felt drained but satisfied. She'd underestimated me, treated me like a fool, and now she was paying the price. Rachel left that night, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I watched her from the window as she loaded her car, muttering under her breath the whole time. The house felt eerily quiet after she was gone, but it was a good kind of quiet, peaceful. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from Rachel's actions spread further than even I had planned. Her boss called to thank me for bringing the videos to their attention. Apparently, Rachel had been skimming money from the company's budget to fund her little escapades. She was fired on the spot, and last I heard, her name was blacklisted in the industry. Mutual friends who saw the evidence stopped talking to her completely. I wasn't sure how many people she had told about her boring, clueless husband, but now they all knew the truth. Matt? He disappeared. I wasn't sure if Rachel had tried to run to him after everything fell apart, but if she had, it didn't work. The last text I saw from him before I blocked his number said, "I can't get involved in this. Good luck. Good luck indeed." Divorce proceedings went smoother than I'd expected. Rachel didn't have the resources to fight back, especially since most of her funds had mysteriously disappeared from our joint accounts before she could touch them. The house was awarded to me, along with the majority of our savings. The judge didn't look too kindly on someone who had spent marital funds on an affair. By the time the papers were finalized, Rachel had nothing. No job, no home, no friends. I wish I could say I felt guilty, but I didn't. Rachel had spent months plotting her escape, planning to leave me with nothing while she ran off to her better life. All I did was beat her to it. Now I'm sitting in the house that she tried to steal from me. The air feels lighter, the silence comforting. It's strange to think about how much of my life revolved around her, how much I ignored just to keep things together, but not anymore. Now it's just me. And honestly, I've never felt better.